Hey guys, so I have everything lined up from newest to oldest, starting from the 2014 Tacoma, 2010 Jeep JK, and then you have a 96 4Runner and 94 Land Cruiser. It's pretty sweet, actually. I've driven them all, got to experience majority in the Tacoma and the Land Cruiser off-road, a little bit with the Jeep JK, and then just a little bit too with the 4Runner. Just kind of want to share with you my thoughts. It's kind of sick because I feel like I have the holy trinity of Toyotas when it comes to off-road. I know you have the Tundra, you have the FJ Cruiser. Actually had no experience with the Tundra, but I feel like that's more of a full-size truck, which you would, I mean, more people would buy it for the full truck size capabilities of towing and more space. Where the Tacoma is a little bit more for, I would say, for more off-road, and utility. I had an experience with the FJ Cruiser at an '07 6-speed manual. That one was pretty sweet, and now this is what I have. I'm still, the only thing I don't have right now is this is my little brother's 4Runner. I love it. I think it's like a perfect college car. And so here are some of my thoughts, and we'll go down each one of them. All right, so here's my 2014 Toyota Tacoma off-road. You can see that the top lights are actually mismatched, but that's because we're doing testing. So trying to figure out which I like better. These lenses are different too. You got wide cornering and then the driving combo over there. So if you're interested in that, check out my videos. It should be uploaded pretty soon. So why I chose the Toyota Tacoma, honestly, it's because it does it all. You can fit 5 people, small people, in the back. I've taken a lot of trips. I've taken it camping, but you can also take the top off where you can use it as a truck. I feel like this is a truck that kind of pretty much, if you were to have one out of the 4, this is probably the truck I would keep. It's new enough that you have modern technology. It has the 4.0 V6, which is tried and true, and mated with a really good transmission that shouldn't give me any issues. Now, with all that said, it does have the power of a 4-cylinder and the gas mileage of a V8. So that's the only drawback, but the thing about it is it's reliable, it's proven. So that's why I love the Tacoma. Out of the 4, this would be the car I would keep if I was to choose one. And the reasons for it is it's multi-use and it kind of just does it all. You can pick up groceries, but it's still really capable. And that's how I created it. Now, if this was a stock Tacoma, I think my answer would be a little bit different. And I think my answer would be more towards the 3rd gen 4Runner. But because it's modified, it's already created to go off-road, and it's already got all the modifications. That's why I would choose it for, if I was to keep one, it would be this one. And that's why it's my daily driver. All right, so this is my Jeep JK. Just recently purchased. Honestly, I've kind of started to develop a love for Jeeps. I understand why people love them. I mean, the modification industry is all towards the Jeep, and it does a great job with the rest of the Toyotas, but I think that if you're looking for more of variety, how inexpensive it is to modify, and just from the factory, how they were created, I would say the Land Cruiser is just slightly right behind it, at least in my opinion, in terms of modification, or the no need for modification coming from the factory. But this is, I mean, from the factory, you could fit already big tires for it. It's already got the straight axle, so keeping 4 wheels all the time as much as you can on the ground, articulation, especially for the rock crawling stuff, the Jeep does it. And aftermarket support, I mean, you just can't beat it. So many people love it. The look, it looks awesome. It's so classic. Ever since they first started these, it's pretty much looked the same, where all other cars have pretty much aged out. Um, I like it. You can take the top off. I live by the beach, so hopefully I keep it long enough that I could take the top off. Go no doors. Um, the only thing about it is it's pretty uncomfortable when you are daily driving it, and especially if you're on a long road trip. My little brother and I just took it to Mammoth, and honestly, I mean, what do you think?
Right.
Probably never again, right? So, but outside of that, like I said, I see why it's a favorite. I see why people love it, and there's a reason for it. I do think having all these four and having owned this one for a bit now, I do think this is a little bit more quirky, and you do have to work on it a lot more compared to your turnkey Toyotas. But that comes with a price, right? That's the price that you have to pay for a platform to be able to build anything you can out of it. It's a rad ride. I love it, and definitely deserves some love. And Jeep, you have my respect, especially as you can see, I've owned Toyotas pretty much all my life. Um, I like it, you know. I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever buy one again, but I'm glad I got to experience it at least, and we'll see how long I keep it. So, all right, so this is my little brother's '96 Toyota 4Runner. It had a heart implant from a donor, JDM Motor. This is the one that's kind of been sitting in the yard for a really long time that you keep in the front yard, and you're like, hey, it needs a motor swap. Finally ended up doing it after, I don't know, a year and a half or something. But this car has a special place in my heart because, one, it's my little brother's. I'm excited for him to adventure in it, and it costs the most money in terms of repair. That heart implant wasn't cheap, and we didn't do it. We actually we just paid somebody else. I just didn't have the time, especially with work. But it worked out. We put a little bit bigger tires on it, the BFGs, and this car is awesome. Third gen platform. What's nice about it, it's got a short wheelbase, kind of like the Jeep. Obviously not as narrow and not as long, where you still feel like you have a longer wheelbase, similar to a truck, but it's cut short. And the steering is nice and tight. Narrow wheelbase does that for you, and that's a nice part about this car that I think stands out from the rest, is the ability for just your maneuverability with the steering wheel, because it is so narrow, just like the Jeep, but you still have a longer wheelbase, which makes it a lot more comfortable on the road compared to the Jeep. And a part of that has to do with the independent front suspension as well. So, if I was to have a car and I was on a budget and I didn't have that much money, I would absolutely love to have one of these. Because it's kind of like the Tacoma, it does it all. You still have bed space in the back, well, in the SUV, right? In the bed, or in the trunk of the SUV. You still have a long enough wheelbase for it to be comfortable off and on road. You could fit 5 people in there, and I mean, it's also timeless. I think this is by far has been such a good looking truck since it was first created, and where you could see a little bit with the Land Cruiser, you could tell its age. With this third gen 4Runner, I think they did such a good job with just how simple and basic it is, and you can still rock it today and not be embarrassed. So, like I said, if I was on a budget and I was to pick, if the Tacoma wasn't an option and I had limited amount of money, I would, and I do have limited amount of money, I would pick the third gen 4Runner. And honestly, I think it looks a little bit better than the Land Cruiser, but that's my opinion, and this isn't even mine. So, that's why I like the third gen 4Runner. All right, the oldest one out of the group, we have the 94 Toyota Land Cruiser. As you guys have probably seen on my previous video, this is probably the most cherished, most abused, and most loved out of the four. And there's a reason for it because I've owned it the longest. Never want to get rid of it. It's got oil leaks. This thing drips oil, and it leaves and marks its territory because of its age. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have this, I don't think I would have ever gone off-roading. It was cheap enough at the time, $3,600, that I could care less what people thought, right? Back then, people thought it was a minivan, and they didn't know about the capabilities. Now everybody knows their capabilities. So, it's got a lot of quirks. It needs a ton of work because it is 30 years old. A lot of problems have gone on in terms of maintenance. So we're talking about water pump. I've done the whole cooling system. The radiator has gone out. It tends to overheat because of no preventative maintenance by the previous owner of the cooling system. So in terms of quirkiness, this has the most quirks, but that's because of its age, right? I've changed pretty much a lot of the things in under the hood for this thing. That I feel pretty confident with it. It's leaking power steering fluid. It's leaking from the rear main seal. So those are a couple of the things that I'll probably figure out here pretty shortly. But I'm excited to put some money in this because it's gonna be a sweet, sweet ride. And the thing about that stands out probably for this one is it's a mix of Jeep, which is the straight axle, from the bottom, right, from front and rear is straight axle, beefy straight axles. I don't know about you guys, but if you've seen a Land Cruiser axle compared to a Jeep axle, there's a big difference. Maybe I'll do a separate video about that. But it's so beefy. Having worked on the burr fields myself and having done these things are created and they're over-engineered, built to last, and that's why that's why I've kept this one the longest, but probably gonna keep it forever. I'm excited for this build, and man, I could probably get rid of all the other cars and drive a Honda Civic and be totally satisfied as long as I have my Land Cruiser. It's super dear to me, and having owned it, it's got all the memories, the rad ones, from learning to adventure, but also kind of stirring up that adventure, like, I don't know, the adventure vibe or adventure journey for me. So she's beat, but I love her, you know? Fender and all, you know, bad paint and all. And now what's pretty rad is they're worth a ton of money. So I'm excited. We'll see what we do with her. She's a little bit on the back burner, but man, in terms of ride smoothness, compared to the Jeep, I think the Jeep's better than the Land Cruiser, just because I think it's got super bad bushings, and yeah, it's I don't know. I just think that this kind of just clunks as you drive. Things feel like you're like rattling. Things are rattling all the time. She's a rad ride. But yeah. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I mentioned, Holy Trinity with the Land Cruiser, the 4Runner, and the Tacoma, and then you got the Jeep. Tell me which one you guys would actually want to ride. Out of all the four, which one would you pick? If you had one, which one would you whip? Which one would be your daily driver? And of course, why?